This question is asking us to simplify a rational expression. It says for all x values when x does not equal 0, the equation 2 over 3x plus 1 over 5 is equal to what? This x does not equal 0 is a qualifier that needs to be there to add legitimacy to the question, and you'll see things like that on the ACT. But this is here because if x were to equal 0, that would make this denominator 0, and you can't divide by 0, which is a domain issue for this particular equation. So that's why that exists. Beyond that, we can just treat this like any rational expression that we're trying to solve or to simplify. And to do so, we have to treat them like fractions, because that's what a rational function means. It means you have a ratio of two values, and in this case, we're going to add them. In order to add and subtract fractions, we need a common denominator. So the first denominator we have is 3x, and the second denominator is 5. And when you're looking for a common denominator, you're trying to find the first term, the first value, that all the denominators that you have, in our case we only have 2, can multiply up to. So what's the lowest value that they could all multiply up to? And in this case, the 3 and the 5 would multiply up to 15. And then this first denominator has an x and this one doesn't, which means we will need to have an x in the denominator. So the first term that 3x and 5 would multiply up to is really just the combination of the two of them in this case, and that's going to be 15x. So if we rewrite this, 2 over 3x plus 1 over 5, we're trying to figure out what does that equal. Okay, again, the common denominator is 15x, so what do we need to multiply this 3x by to make it 15x? And that would be 5. But we need to do that in a way that actually keeps the function the same. So we're going to multiply the denominator 5, and whatever we do to the denominator, we have to do to the numerator. And essentially what we're doing right there, 5 divided by 5 is 1. So we're just multiplying this piece by 1, and when you multiply 1 by something, it's always just that something. So that keeps this the same value. Okay? So 5 times 2 in the numerator is 10. 5 times 3x is 15x. So we have the denominator of 15x for our first value. We need to do the same for the second one. So what do we need to multiply the 5 by to make it 15x? Well, that's going to be 3x. And just like we did over here, whatever we do to the denominator, we must do to the numerator, because again, we're multiplying by 1 in that case. So on top, 3x times 1 is 3x, and 3x times 5 is 15x, and we're going to add those two values. Once we have a common denominator, we can add the fractions. If you look at the numerator, 1 has an x and 1 doesn't, so they're not like terms, which means we can't combine them. So the numerator stays as 10 plus 3x. And then the denominators, when you add the fractions, you've made them common, so you're adding the same pieces there, and so they stay the same. So this is just 15x. All right, so you get done doing that. You might look at that answer and say, okay, do those x's cancel out? But in order for that to be the case, every term in the numerator would have to have an x. So this 10 would need an x in order for an x to cancel out. So since that doesn't happen, that remains our answer in simplified form, and we can find that in choice H.